over the last few days, we're being treated to acts of desperation from the main two political parties, but particularly Labour, and I find it delicious on every level. It's funny to watch these main parties flail around and get themselves all worked up into a lather about reform, because there's years till the next election. These people should just chill out and focus on what they're supposed to be doing. But they are obsessed with reform because of the polling. They see what's coming down the pipe and they are deeply, deeply worried. And the full cope mode on offer is just brilliant. So a couple of clips for you here today. First of all, here's the Tories and Chris Philp outlining, and it seriously looks like he's got some type of desperate face on him here. Whining face. I mean, this is just beautiful on every level. So here's Chris Philp first of all.
What Nigel Farage is proposing to do in terms of the tax cuts and spending increases he is proposing, it's 2.5 or even 3 times the scale of what Liz Truss attempted back in September 2022. Three times the scale. I was at the time urging spending restraint to offset, or at least partially offset, the proposed tax cuts, because it was clear to me at the time you can't just have unfunded tax cuts on that scale. Now, unfortunately, the sort of suggestion, the case I made internally back then in September 2022 wasn't listened to, and we've all seen the result subsequently. So, what Nigel Farage is proposing to do in terms of the tax cuts and spending increases he is proposing, it's 2.5 or even 3 times the scale of what Liz Truss attempted back in September 2022. Three times the scale. Now, we saw how that ended, and Nigel Farage is proposing to do the same thing, except times 3. So it's actually, I think, very irresponsible of Nigel Farage to be proposing these sort of unfunded spending measures.
Yes.
And I think as the media and the British public just scrutinise a bit more carefully what he's saying, it doesn't really stand up to scrutiny.
Right.
And Nigel Farage has been, for the last few months, or frankly the last few years, throwing out lots of attractive sounding slogans without really having any substance behind it. I think that is now going to get properly looked at and properly scrutinised, probably in a way that it hasn't ever before.
Chris Philp there, using his own party's past behaviour as a warning sign not to vote for another party, is perhaps one of the most ridiculous things you'll see all week. That's surely not a valid argument. You can't say, my party done this 3 years ago and look at the mess we made. Are you really going to vote these other people in? And the answer to that is yes, because what's the difference if that's the case? I mean, really silly argument. And all of this, I was against all of that at the time and I didn't want to do that. Whatever, you didn't come out and say that beforehand. This was all post that you done that, Chris. So that argument doesn't really hold water. And as for sloganeering, well, this is politics we're dealing with here, Mr. Philp. I mean, that's not an argument at all, really. And so, from the Tories acting desperate, we'll move on to Labour, who are in full panic mode, and it's perfect. So here's Torsten Bell outlining his reasons why you'd be really foolish to vote for reform.
Nigel Farage decides to tell everyone that he's actually a massive closet lefty. So what is the truth? Nigel Farage's party have voted against employment rights bill. That's voting against sick pay for low earners, and it's voting in favour of employers being able to continue with exploitative 0 hours contracts. They voted against the renters' rights bill that stops landlords being able to kick tenants out for absolutely no reason. What's consistent about Nigel Farage is that he said he wants to get rid of the NHS as we know it. He wants people to pay for their health treatment in some circumstances. And what's consistent about Nigel Farage is that he's wanted Liz Truss on steroids. If you look at what The Economist has said about that, they said the result would either be deep austerity or a fiscal implosion. Now, I know people sometimes call Reform a party of populists, but when you look at what they actually stand for, there is nothing popular about it.
And one of the funniest things about that clip is Torsten Bell believes that he's speaking to people and how they feel about what's going on at the moment. Well, I can categorically tell you, certainly from my perspective, certainly from the people I've spoken to, Nobody cares about your employment rights bill. It smacks of lefty strangeness, as in the renters' rights bill, which is destroying landlords in this country. And, every 5 years, Nigel Farage takes a turn to the left. Like, what's he talking about? I've never heard of that before. Nigel Farage isn't going all lefty. He's just throwing out policies there to make you all panic. And look at the result of it. Now, to sum everything up here, Labour MPs have been out in force over the last week on full offensive mode. Why? They're trying to put the Reform Rebellion down. And need I remind any of you that the current party in power is the Labour Party. So what happened? There was an election last year and the Labour Party were voted in, and they were voted in to do something called run the country. And so the Labour Party are the ones running the country. So what they're doing at the moment, they're running around worrying about an election that's going to happen in 4 years. Meanwhile, Mr. Torsten Bell is the Undersecretary for Pensions. And it doesn't appear to have a lot to say about pensions there, even though right this week, Rachel Reeves is the one that's forcing pension companies to invest 10% of their funds, which have been put in there by normal everyday people, into a declining UK stock market. And so he's got little to say about that, but everything to talk about reform. And you see the problem that Labour have got here. In addition to that, the NHS thing thrown in there. Like, reform isn't going to get rid of the NHS. There's far too many problems. They're just going to give a tax break to people that pay private. And the private healthcare system has been around for decades. It's around there right now. What they're talking about is a few percentage off your tax bill if you go private, because you're taking the stress off the NHS, and that's going to push a few people possibly into doing it. But they're talking about a small amount of people. It's a teeny tiny policy. But yet again, Labour comes out and lies. And of course, the more times they tell these lies, eventually when it comes out, the more ridiculous they're going to appear to everybody. And really, it's smacking of desperation and vulnerability, which is a bad double act. It's bad for a government to look like this. The whole party, including Keir Starmer, making announcements today, I literally could not put you through that, and I couldn't be bothered to watch Keir Starmer whine on for 25 minutes standing on a factory floor to people looking round at each other going, what's this guy talking about? The whole of the Labour Party are on damage control mode. They've got no clue what they're doing. The economy's in the toilet. They're now spending all their time worrying about reform, looking vulnerable and desperate. And you know the funniest thing about it all? They still don't get it. Both these huge political parties, Labour and the Tories, are in panic mode. It's really cool to see, and I do find a lot of humour with it. But again, these parties just don't understand. It's not the economy, it's immigration, stupid. It's small boats. Stop the small boats, stop the mass migration, and you may be in with a little squeak at the next election to argue about the economy. But these people here, they're just completely disconnected from normal life and how most of the people that I talk to are thinking at the moment. And it's amazing to see on so many levels. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for your time. I do appreciate it.